Hello, today is the 20th of December 2024. I'm really looking forward to making this video because I feel like it's long overdue and talking about things and just making videos really helps me a lot of the time. Like almost every time it helps me to some extent. And in the past few days I have been brooding a bit in my thoughts and yeah, kind of just had some moments that were very down, and I just felt quite negative and yeah, really got reminded of the past, of my depression, and it kind of felt like it was coming back and how easily I could really fall back into something like my depression. It seemed like it was all so close to me. How it started was basically our new table got delivered, our new kitchen table and chairs, and Dad had built it up and it was really nice, and me and Amy came home from work and saw it and we were so excited, and I was really looking forward to rearranging the living room / eating area, dining room area, because it's all in one room. And Amy had this cool idea of how we could set it up and stuff, and I was really excited when I came home and I asked Dad, do we have permission to rearrange the room? And his answer was just immediately no, not today and definitely not tomorrow. And I immediately was like, okay, I didn't reply to anything, but I didn't say these things, but in my mind I was like, okay, what is the actual reason for this? And can he not see that I'm really excited? And he basically just completely shut down my excitement and didn't at all even see oh, she's really excited, what's the harm in rearranging a room? And just letting my kids fulfill their wish or their excitement or whatever. So I don't know, it wasn't a big deal, but I was just okay, he's not even trying to let us have what we want. He's just immediately saying no, and without giving any explanation or reason, and without being sensitive about it either. He immediately just shouted no. So basically then, after I'd gone for a shower, I was sitting in the living room with him and I asked him again, can we please rearrange it? We had such a cool idea and it would just be so nice to do it. And then he was like, no, I don't want you to do it. And that was all he said, just all the time, no, I don't want you to do it. And I then got kind of afraid to ask again or to kind of explain look, we're really excited, we can put it back if you don't like it, it'll literally take 5 minutes maybe to just swap around the few bits that we had in mind. And it was he wasn't even open to kind of looking at what our idea was, or I don't know, it was just really weird. It felt like he didn't at all see how excited I was, or if he did that, he didn't care, but for him it was just important that we didn't rearrange it. And I don't know, when I asked, but why? We just want to really rearrange it and stuff. He then said, well, this is not your house, this is mine and Mom's house. And that immediately made me feel completely powerless, as if I'm trying to dominate and I'm trying to decide the way it should be. And he immediately put himself up into a position that he's the boss. He decides the way it's done. He decides what it looks like. That's one thing that he said, which honestly really upset me. Because I was also I'm not trying to dominate. I'm not trying to say I need to have it the way I want it. I'm not trying to say this is my house and it's not theirs. But also they always told us we are a part of this house and we get to decide how we want to have it as well. And they always say we don't really care the way it looks, you can decide most of it. They always say, it's all of our houses. It's not just mom and dad's house. And then now, for him, it probably seemed so suitable to now say, oh, it's his house, but it's not my house, so I don't get to decide how to do it. And I was just so upset because I was honestly just genuinely excited about rearranging the room. I love designing rooms, rearranging them, making them just so satisfying and like perfect in my opinion. And I was just genuinely excited, and then all I ever got was these sort of replies from him. So that made me feel extremely unseen. It was just very hurtful as well. Like once he replied with this, no, definitely not, once again, like I honestly got kind of afraid to ask again or to kind of explain why I really want to do it, because I was afraid he was gonna, shout at me and really shut me up, which he would have done in the past. Nowadays it's probably different, but still I was like, because he was in this sort of temper or mood where he just said no so blankly, I don't know, I felt very trapped in my own body because I wanted to stand up for what I wanted and what I believed in. I really wanted to let him see how excited I actually was without I didn't want to dominate and say, no, we definitely have to do this. This is so mean of you, you're so wrong. No, but I just wanted to really show him, look, I'm so excited and I don't see the harm in this. What's going on? Why is it so wrong for us to rearrange the room? But then I felt this strong longing of wanting to tell him again or ask him again, look, we're really excited. I felt this strong longing to stand up for myself because I didn't want to just be shut up and then have to accept it even though I was excited to rearrange the room. So I wanted to stand up for myself and, fight for what I wanted. But at the same time, I felt like I wasn't able to express it, I wasn't able to talk because I was really afraid he was gonna, shout at me or say something really hurtful to me. So I, in my body, felt very, very trapped. And at first I was with this trapped feeling and it was very unpleasant. And then I asked myself, okay, what choices do I have? So either I say something, I stand up for myself, I ask him again or explain it to him, or I don't say anything and I just accept that right now we can't rearrange the room. Or the third one is be a cheeky child and just do it anyway once he's out of the room. And that option was immediately shut down because that's just never the way I did things. That's never the decision I made, at least I can't remember. So I knew that was wrong, but at the same time I was just I could do that as well. I could just be a cheeky child and just do it. So yeah, he just kind of left the room without any sort of explanation, without in any way trying to see my side or understand my excitement. So I was just kind of upset, but honestly, I knew I was going to be fine. But when I phoned mom, because we phone every evening, I wanted to explain that to her a bit, just that, I was kind of upset and he didn't see my excitement and so on. But mom was, I don't know, she was already not in the best mood, and I've learned and noticed from all the times mom is not in a good mood, she says a lot of things that later on she either regrets or that she wouldn't actually say that way if she were in a good mood. So yeah, a lot of the time, or most of the time when she's in a bad mood, she just lets the things out that are in her mind. She doesn't really filter them or ask, how can I say this in a nicer way? So she kind of lets things out without a filter, which usually she wouldn't do. But when she's in a bad mood, she does that. And it can be extremely hurtful because it is without a filter. So if you're, for example, arguing with her while she is already in a bad mood, or when she gets into a bad mood, she really knows exactly how to tear you down. Because she just doesn't filter them anymore then. So I've had those experiences with her as well, and when now she was in a bad mood, she said certain things that, like, they weren't necessarily really mean or really hurtful, but because I was already hurt and sensitive as well, and already thoughts were in my mind that were like beating myself up, like, why didn't you stand up for yourself? Or like, oh, now you felt trapped, you weren't supposed to, like, you shouldn't be feeling that way, you've gone through the Thrive program, like, why can't you handle this better? You know, and then kind of thoughts that were hurting me as well is like, oh, dad is trapping you, like, he's not, you know, allowing you to do something that you want, and he doesn't understand you, and no one understands you, and you're just alone in this and you're trapped. So I don't know, there was many hurtful thoughts already going through my mind. So when I talked to mom, it honestly made things worse because I focused more on the negative thoughts that were already in my mind, and then whenever she said something, like I said, when she's in a bad mood, she doesn't really think the way she usually would. So she said things like, for example, when I mentioned that I know that dad has emetophobia and OCD, but he can't stop us from doing things that we want to do just because he's struggling. Like, even my sister Amy said as well, like, we're really being affected by it, and a lot of the times we're being held back personally because of his problem, and that's just something that we can't accept because we are not the ones who have the problem, so we don't want it to be pushed on top of us, and we don't want to feel trapped because we're our own people. We want to make our own decisions and whatever. To that, mom said, like, yeah, Leona, but you're kind of also like that, you're affecting the family too, like, you have OCD and those thought patterns to some extent, and all of us need to watch out for certain things as well every day because we know that you don't like it or you don't want it or whatever. So she basically said what I was currently hurting about. So how can I explain this? So basically what she was doing is telling me that I am causing my family members the same pain that I'm currently feeling because of something, you know, because of dad's emetophobia. Even though maybe she was trying to help me, I don't really know how that was supposed to help, but maybe she was trying to help me to just kind of say, you know, what dad is doing is pretty normal because I'm doing it too. Second of all, I think, and I could be wrong, but I do think that when I do or say things which my family members need to keep an eye out or whatever, I usually explain it. I usually explain, look, I don't like this because it really scares me, or this is the reason for that. Like, I ask, can you please not do that anymore? I have an open, honest, proper conversation or, you know, explanation, whereas dad is just like, no, you're not allowed to do that, and then we have to jump and listen. I also think that because I give explanations and because I don't think whatever they have to watch out for me is as strong as with dad, because I don't see myself every day going like, oh, don't do that, like, you know, you should stop doing that, you should change that, you should work on that. Like, I don't go about my day saying that and doing that and having these comments in my mind. So I don't know, it hurt me because she knows I don't like being compared to dad, and because in that moment I was trying to express my pain to her, and then she was basically saying that I'm causing that pain to my other family members too, that I'm doing the same thing dad is doing, which I'm not. I do it differently, and even if it is similar or the same or whatever, we're different people. I don't handle it the way he does. And I was just like, oh my god, I really hope I don't do that. I really hope my family doesn't feel trapped around me. I really hope they don't feel like I'm the boss of them, or like, you know, they have to do whatever I tell them to do or want them to do. So yeah, I kind of, my mood sank a lot then, and I wasn't the friendliest anymore. So I told her, like, okay, I really don't like that you just compared me to Dad, because first of all, I think I always give an explanation when there's something going on, and I think it's pretty understandable then. And I also don't like how you basically were just saying that I'm causing you guys the pain that Dad has just caused me. And yes, I know that Dad hasn't actually caused me pain. It was my own thoughts about it that made it so bad. But still, in that situation, it just was the way it was because of the way I perceived it in that moment. So anyway, that's what I told Mom, and she kind of lost her patience a bit more and sighed and rolled her eyes and like sank her head and was as if she had no energy, as if she was like gonna faint at any moment. And it's like so dramatic. And whenever we fought in the past in my depression, she would do that a lot of the time, so extremely much. And I was like, is she gonna die in front of me? Is she gonna like faint because she has no energy left? She would like really like drag her whole body along and like, oh, this is so exhausting, and as if like it's all my fault, like whatever I said to her that she couldn't handle it. And then I would see, oh my god, I'm making my mother weak, even though like it's her problem if she can't accept my reply, and I'm allowed to say those things if they hurt me, and it's not like I don't know it. Like, she's saying the things that she wants to say, which is fine as well, but I'm allowed to reply to that. I don't know, it's just when I saw her in the camera then like going so weak and stuff, I was like immediately like, oh my god, this is the way our argument started in the past. She lost her energy and I, felt like I couldn't handle it anymore. Everything was just horrible. Like, I'm the most horrible person on earth and I can't handle my own feelings and everyone hates me and I'm doing everything wrong. Everyone's telling me what I'm doing wrong. And then there was my own thoughts that were constantly beating me up, making me feel so weak. And then Mom and me, obviously, because we were already like weak and at a high point, like emotionally, that we didn't filter our words anymore, and we both perceived it wrongly and took it so personally, and it just escalated and turned into like this huge, massive, traumatic argument. So I got like really afraid that was happening again. Obviously it didn't, because we're both two different people, but I could see it happening again, and that was so scary. And another thing that she said as well, which is exactly the same thing Dad said, is, yeah, well, this is our house, it's not your house. And I was like, what are you trying to prove with that? That I have no say? That I have no power in this house? Like, what are you trying to say? You and Dad always say it's up to all of us. We're allowed to try things out. And then suddenly when I want to do something, you're like, it's not your house. What are you trying to say by that? Is that supposed to help me? Like, what? I don't understand. And then Mom said things like, yeah, all of us seem a bit low on energy at the moment. We get agitated quite quickly. We get triggered a lot by what the others say around us. So maybe during the Christmas holidays when you're in Ireland, we are in Ireland with Mom and Alana, we should like have a family discussion and maybe just talk about a few things. And me, in my mind, I could just see all of us blaming each other, it escalating, me leaving the conversation, being more hurt, feeling more down and closer to depression. That's what I saw in my mind. So I see now that my reaction was based off of my own thoughts, when in reality Mom had a good intention. So I see that in that moment my reaction was, wrong, or could have been better or nicer. Nevertheless, my reaction was, no, I don't want to have a conversation. I think that everyone should find their own way to deal with things. Like, I don't think that a conversation will help. Because I was like, I think we're all just going to blame each other. So I think a better way is for all of us individually to find a way to just cope with things better and deal with things better, because there's no need in blaming each other, telling each other, this triggers me, that triggers me, don't do this anymore, don't do that anymore. So instead of doing that, I was like, no, we should all just find a way to build up our own coping skills better and more. So yeah, my reaction was basically, I don't want to have a conversation. I think we should all just build up our own way of dealing with things better and more. And to that, she sighed and she was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So yeah, there was more things said, but I think those were the three main things that just weren't pleasant, weren't nice. And at the end, I could see like she wasn't doing good, and I immediately thought, wow, this is my fault, I made it worse. I knew she was already in a bad mood, and then we kind of talked about this, even though at first it wasn't necessarily my intention to talk about it. I wasn't like, I didn't phone her and was like, I'm gonna start talking about this, but it like led to it kind of, and I did have in the back of my mind like the thought, I would like to talk about this. Because I don't want to keep brooding about it. But then when we talked about it, I brooded about it more. And it all actually got worse. In the end, like, I had the camera like turned away from me. She couldn't even see me anymore. But I had, I had cried in between, and I had tears in my eyes, and I just felt like the most horrible person. And I was like, oh my god, maybe this is all my fault. Maybe the way my family sees me or what she's saying to me is all true, that like I'm a really hard person to be around, even though she didn't say those words, but that was how my thoughts picked it up. Maybe I'm a really hard person to be around. What if at some point I'll wake up and see like, oh my god, I'm like a really horrible person. I make my family's life really hard, and it's all my fault, and like I hurt mom now, and what if that was all because of me, and what if I'm the one who's going to be depressed again, and what if I'm the one who's going to create those arguments between me and mom again, and I don't know if I can handle that. And it seems so real, like it seems so true, like everything that mom's saying, and these arguments happening, and us feeling so weak and not filtering our thoughts, it's like all so real. So how can I be happy? How can I live a joyful life if these horrible things are real? And like that hurting each other is real, and thinking badly about each other is real. Like how can I ever be happy then? It's like my thoughts got really dramatic and extreme, and I was especially afraid because I was like, I thought like all of us had changed, and yes, we had, but still that I could almost see the same arguments as the past happening again. Like that terrified me. I was like, no, we all changed. Like, why would that happen again? Not like, I don't know, but at the end of the call, I just said to her, like, honestly, I don't want to give this any importance. Like, it wasn't even such a big thing. And yeah, first, at the start of the call, mom also was like, Leona, it's not so important. And I then was like, yeah, it's not, the situation isn't, but the fact that I'm reacting this way and I have these strong emotions, obviously that means something, and obviously that is important. So I felt like she was putting down my pain, and she was like, oh, stop, it's not important, like what the hell are you doing? And basically just saying, my pain is worthless and not important. But anyway, at the end, I was just like, I don't want to give this any importance, because giving these things importance is just ruining my life, and I don't want to do that anymore. It wasn't such a big deal. The only thing that's making it a big deal is that like we're focusing on it, and I'm focusing on it, thinking about it so much. So I really at the end was like, look, mom, it's not a big deal. Like you were already in a bad mood and didn't have the best day, so that's why you don't feel great now. But really the situation wasn't a big deal, and like I don't want to give this any importance. And yeah, I could feel like I really had the choice if I gave this importance or not. Like Amy had joined at the end then, and mom just asked us a few questions, like normal questions, and then she just said good night, and like it was fine. But then I explained some of this to Amy and talked to her about it, and I was like, you know, what's your viewpoint on this? And she said a few things that like I agreed with, and I felt like, yeah, she kind of understands my side. But I don't know. Then, you know, it was sort of okay, but at the same time it wasn't, because when I went to bed and the next morning, I woke up quite depressed, and I, you know, thought about not even the situation between me and dad, because that was honestly not such a big deal. But what was a bigger deal then was mine and mom's conversation and phone call. And I kept thinking about that, and it felt so real. It felt like, no, it was a real problem. Like both of us didn't like each other, and she said mean things or hurtful things to me, which honestly really hurt me and got me thinking so negatively about myself, and really thinking like my depressions might be happening over again, and these arguments, and like it really scared me. Then I, you know, reminded myself of the Thrive program and how like I've just lost perspective. Like if you feel in any way stressed, agitated, any sort of emotions to whatever extent, you have lost perspective to that extent. So, you know, I told myself, look, you've lost perspective. Once you feel calm again, you'll be able to regain perspective, or the calmer you get, the more perspective you will get back. So at some point I noticed like, yeah, that was just mom's opinion and that was my opinion. And then also, I perceived things the way I did, yes, like the evening before when we were talking, but you know, that doesn't mean it's actually the way she meant it. Maybe she actually meant it in a different way. And if we would have both not been in a bad mood, the conversation would have gone completely differently. But then I kept thinking about like, yeah, but what if the things that we said were true, and what if my perspective was true? And you know, it's like I felt like I don't know if I can really handle that, and that scares me, because there's always a part of me, since I broke out of my depression a couple of years ago, there was always this part of me which knew I can handle it. You know, even if it was so hard and so horrible and it was very painful, I still knew I could handle it. But in my depression, there was constantly thoughts like, I don't know if I can handle this. I can't handle this. It's so bad. It's so horrible. I can't handle this. And now it like, in the past couple of days, it felt slightly like something slightly felt like, I don't really know if I can handle this, if this gets stronger. And that really scares me, because I'm like, I don't want to have those thoughts in my head. I want to work on it, and I am working on it with the Thrive program. I'm gonna keep working on it, but it just really scares me, because like, and yes, even if that were to happen, then I'll keep, you know, building up the feeling that I can handle it. Like, you know, it's not the end of the world. I'll still can change my world around. I can just change my experiences. Still, the thought that mainly held me back was like, what if my perspective was true though? What if it's all real? And like, I don't know. Yeah, I think I should probably go on to part 2, because this video otherwise will definitely be over an hour long. Yeah, that's part 1, the dramaticness between me and mom. Then we'll go to part 2, which is something a little dramatic that happened between me and dad as well. Then a very good moment, then something a bit more dramatic again. So yeah, see you in the next video, hopefully. Bye.